Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. Rabbi Binnenfeld here with a very short thought in advance of Shabbos. A very, very important Shabbos because it's a very, very important Parsha. Parsha Shelach touches on some critical themes, and what I want to share with you is what I think is probably something of a lesser-known source contained within this week's Parsha. It deals with the number of spies that went into the land, the number of spies who came back, and I don't mean the number of spies who succeeded in their mission, but rather the number of spies who actually failed in their mission. We know that they were divided. 12 spies all in all, but only 2 succeed. Only Kalev and Yoshua see the land that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted them to see. Only 2 actually see the land flowing with milk and honey, the land of bounty that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to provide all of Klal Yisrael with. What do the other 10 see? The other 10 see negativity. The other 10 see a land that's going to eat them alive. The other 10 see land that is full of giants. The inhabitants are going to be too well protected. We'll never be able to conquer them. Impossible. Somehow or another, they don't maintain the faith that Kalev and Yehoshua had, and they lead the rest of the nation astray. It is because of these 10 men initially that the entire nation is completely derailed from its trajectory and spend the next 38 years, unfortunately, wallowing in the desert. What does the Torah call these 10 men? A wicked congregation, but in doing so, it uses the term Eda Hara'a Hazos, this wicked congregation. That term Eda is critical because the Gemara in Brachos tells us that this effectively is the smallest number of people, the smallest gathering that we can have when we need things that can only be recited with a congregation. It is the smallest gathering for Tefilos when we know that there's a Hashras Hashchina, a divine presence that becomes manifest, that is maintained, such that will allow us to say the holiest prayers that we could possibly offer. Kaddish and Kedusha and Kriyas HaTorah, only when we have 10 people. How do we know that it's 10? Because the Torah refers to these 10 as an Eidah, as a congregation. That's absolutely remarkable. If ever there were 10 people who should not be pointed to as the paradigm of sanctity and of holiness, it would be these 10 people. These 10 people failed. These 10 people are responsible for a catastrophe of catastrophes that occurs within the Jewish people. Why point to these people specifically? So I think perhaps the answer can be found in a very interesting comment of the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim at the end of Shmiras HaLashon provides some encouragement for attending Minyan. And among all the other items that he notes why it's important and why we should be there, he notes that the truth is, if a person's davening on his own, he should daven on his own. The reality is that even if we find ourselves in a position where, for whatever reason, we have to daven b'yechidus, indeed we should. It's our mandate, it's our obligation. We absolutely have to daven, come what may, even if it's not ideal circumstances. However, in terms of getting that tefillah accepted, highly unlikely that it will penetrate the heavens the way that tefillah can when we get together with a minyan. What happens when we daven on our own is that it's just us, and that tefillah automatically, says the Chafetz Chaim, becomes scrutinized, becomes analyzed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu picks it apart, and he wonders, and he asks the very difficult and very pointed questions. Was there proper kavanah? Did he know what the words meant? Was he distracted? Did he have a million other things on his mind? And all of those things hamper the ability of that tefillah to actually make the impression and actually hit the mark that we desperately need it to. What happens when you daven with a minyan? When you daven with a minyan also, we should try to have kavanah, and we should try to know what the words mean, and we should try to do our best. But the reality is, says the Chafetz Chaim, there's no more scrutiny. That degree of scrutiny is severely tamped down. Why is that? Because it's all of us. Because it's an Eidah, because it's a congregation, because whatever I might be lacking, perhaps this other fellow makes up. Perhaps whatever is inhibiting my tefillah, whether it's something to do with the actual tefillah itself, my personality, my midos, lack of observance in some capacity or another, maybe this other person is going to help me make up. When we get together as a community, when we get together as a congregation, the microcosm of which is the minyan, our tefilos are far more readily accepted. And perhaps that's why specifically we look to this Eidah. What a remarkable place to go looking for a source for 10 people getting together and say holy things. Why in the world would he choose these 10 people? Because specifically we know their imperfections. We know that they were imperfect. We know that they had issues. We know that they did things wrong. And nevertheless, the Torah is telling us it could have been those 10 men. If those 10 men had gotten together and had davened, their tefilos would still have been accepted. That still can be a minyan. When 10 souls get together and they turn towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu and beseech and request and give thanks and give praise, those tefilos are accepted in a way that the tefillah of an individual simply cannot be. We should have those 10 men in mind, specifically, when we're trying to make weigh the options and trying to make that very tough decision. Do we go, do we not go? Do we stay at home, or do we head out to Minyan? How much do I need Siyata Dishmaya? How much do I need a HaKadosh Baruch Hu on my side? How much do I need His watching over me and His involvement in my life? How much do I need Him by my side in order to ensure my success? If I desperately need it, then I need to give myself the best possible option of getting Him on my side, of making sure that Hashem is in my corner. We should keep those 10 men in mind. If I'm not that different, because I also have my shortcomings and I also have my failings, if I'm not that different, then I need to make sure that I'm at least in that group of 10, and that chas v'shalom, I don't try to approach the king all on my own, saying that, I'm here all on my lonesome, but I'd like to have a private conversation. Unfortunately, the reality is, the Chafetz Chaim tells us that the answer overwhelmingly is far more likely to be no. Let's make sure that we gather together with others, even if we believe that our Tefilos are not worthy of themselves to be accepted. When we gather together with our friends, with the minyan, then we ensure that we can get HaKadosh Baruch Hu in our corner. Wishing everybody a very, very beautiful Shabbos.